Wow, for years and years, I was living the life of a military spouse without even knowing what that term meant or that it existed. And because I did not know that identity, I also did not know the support that existed. I discovered the phrase military spouse when my husband was preparing to retire from the US Army. Hi, my name is Lydia, and I share real stories in the context of transition because change is what happens around us. We see it, but transition is what happens within us. And while we are busy adapting to new roles, new countries, new expectations, new responsibilities, anything that lives bring our way, there are internal shifts happening that we often don't fully understand. This channel is for people who want to move through life more intentionally. Those of us who want to understand ourselves better, navigate change with more awareness, and support themselves and the people they love more compassionately. Well, I've experienced many transitions: immigration, motherhood, career reinvention, military life, mental health struggles, identity shifts, building community, studying over professionally, becoming a non-profit founder. And I have seen firsthand just how difficult transition becomes when we do not have the right language or awareness or support. That is why here we name the transitions that quietly shape us, and we get the tools and frameworks to navigate life so that we are not just simply passers-by in our lives. We are not just passengers. We are not just existing. We will thrive. I hope that's your goal. Welcome here. Well, by this stage in my life, I had already experienced deployment, that is like moving from getting stationed somewhere with the military. Relocation, military life is very, 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 very nomadic. Career instability, raising children far from family, and trying to build a life around constant uncertainty. But still, I did not think of myself as a military spouse. Where I come from, the military is not central to everyday civilian culture the way it is in America. No, it's not. And in many, many countries, that is the same situation. There are not entire systems built around military family identity. So I entered the life without understanding the language attached to it. I thought I was simply married to someone in the military. He was in the US Army. I did not realize there was a community, resources, programs, support networks, career assistance, shared language and experience, and entire identity connected to that experience. And because I did not know, I navigated many parts of military life alone. I struggled. I did not know it then, but this was yet another transition. Not just adjusting to military life, but learning how systems work in a new country. And many immigrants experience this. I want to dwell a little bit on that experience because it's not your typical immigrant experience. Being married in the military is a whole life on its own. And being an immigrant is also a whole life on its own. And when you live at the intersection of both, in my own words, it's a recipe for disaster. Because there's some things that one system assumes of the other, or one system does not know of the other, that makes it very easy for those of us who live at that intersection to fall through the many, many cracks that exist because of just that dynamic. Well, when you move to a new environment, you are not only learning geography, you are learning systems, social language, cultural assumptions, identity categories, and where support actually exists. And when you do not know the language of a system, you often miss access to support inside it. And I realized how I just missed all of it, including the fact that, and this haunts me to date. Not that I regret it, but it kind of haunts me because if I had some information before, I definitely would not be in the situation I am right now with student loans, over $50,000 in student loans for pursuing a master's degree in project management. When project management is something that is offered widely throughout the military space for free. Well, not at a master's degree level. Well, if I wanted to, maybe there was some other way to do the master's degree, but learning the skill of project management and taking the PMP certification, that is something that's offered generally for free, particularly as someone who at the time was active duty. That would have definitely been something free of charge for me, and I would not have been in this place where I'm still paying student loans. Looking back now, I realized I was carrying experience that had names, but I did not yet know the names. And you know what? Language matters because language creates visibility, and visibility creates access. Now, what I do right now is creating language around my experience and the experience of those like me. For information, you might know, you might not know, I'm the founder of the Foreign Born Military Spouse Network. And courtesy of my experience and the difficulties and the challenges that I went through, and just realizing how being isolated and not knowing how things work or what was available to me just pushed me into this space where I just couldn't see others going through the same, because it was not a good experience. It is one of the things that actually led me into depression. And now I have decided and resolved that I'm going to make sure that everybody, if not everyone around America, if not around the world, to know that that life is not easy. Not to discourage anyone, but to raise awareness. Because when you're aware of something, when you know, like what I talk about here every day, when you're aware, so when you have language, when you have tools, you know how to navigate life. I couldn't navigate it well because I did not have the tools. I did not have the language for it. I didn't even know what this experience was going to be like. So I'm trying to make sure that those like me have the awareness and have the tools and frameworks to navigate this life well. One of the things I now teach through the grounded transition framework is that awareness changes how we move through life. Because once you can identify what transition you are actually experiencing, you stop blaming yourself for struggling. And you begin responding with more intention, like I did. The moment I found, oh, I'm a military spouse, then I went on Google. That time, Google, there was no ChatGPT. What is a military spouse? And a whole world opened up. And I found organizations, I found support, I found people who were talking about, I found language, I found names, things that I had not thought about before, so definitely you shouldn't be blaming yourself for anything, right? And I teach that because when you identify that experience, you stop blaming yourself for struggling and you just begin responding with intention. And I'll repeat that over and over and over, because awareness breeds that intentionality. What you don't know, and you can't respond to. But what you know, you take charge and you move through it with, awareness. I often think about how different some parts of my journey might have felt if I had understood earlier what military spouse life was, what support existed, and what I was not, that probably I was not the only person navigating these challenges. Nonetheless, this experience taught me something valuable. Never assume you have to navigate an environment alone. And I try to tell everyone that try to be more. I can't even blame myself because I feel like I'm veering towards going to blame myself for not knowing and assuming certain things. But again, because I'm also in this place where I want to use my experience to help others, is just try to figure out if at all there might be. I think that's a softer language. Trying to check if there might be. If there's something new you're going through, throw a few words out there. Just, is there support for new mothers? Is there something like that? Well, I don't know if I would have known military spouse. Maybe I don't know what I would have asked if I was supposed to ask about military spouse support. I don't know. Maybe I would have said, someone moved to America and is married to an army, or a soldier. I don't know. I'm trying everything here. Bear with me. Well, if you're entering a new season of life, immigration, if you're a new immigrant, or maybe you're not so new, but there's still a lot to be learned. Marriage, maybe someone has just proposed, you're just about to get married, or you're newly married, or probably in the marriage but still navigating a lot of things. Motherhood, you're pregnant, or you just given birth, or you have a toddler, or your kids are growing up. Career change, maybe you've pivoted from one career into another, or you've moved spaces, or you're just in the same old, but things keep changing. You really cannot tell one day from another. Caregiving, that's a huge place that that we always just ignore. We think caregiving comes automatically. It's a whole shift. Retirement, your things are going to be looking so different from what they were. And there's also what we call generally in military transition from the military into civilian life. You're leaving a whole system and getting into a whole other one that you might not know. Relocation, you're moving from probably one town to another, you're moving from one state to another, you're moving from one country to another. It doesn't matter. Transitions are constant. We are constantly navigating something. You're moving from childhood to teenagehood. You're maybe moving into college. You're maybe, moving into your first house. Maybe you're thinking of buying a new house. Maybe you just become an empty nester or about to become an empty nester. All these are transitions in life that require us to be aware. You need to learn the language of the environment you're entering. Because support often exists before awareness does. That's why I'm here. And this is one reason I care deeply about helping people navigate transition intentionally. Because I know firsthand what it feels like to go through major life changes without understanding what is happening internally or where support exists externally. And I also know how powerful awareness can become once you begin naming things clearly and once you understand them. Sometimes the hardest part of transition is not the change itself. And I find in my own situation, the hardest part was not the change itself. I almost was prepared for okay, I'm moving, new. That was not the hardest part. It is navigating an unfamiliar reality without language for what you are experiencing. Someone is calling me. Later. If you've ever discovered support, community, or understanding later than you wish you'd had, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. And if you're navigating transition right now, and I want you to open your mind about transition, there's a lot going on about transition. I did create a free grounded transition checklist to help you begin identifying what may be happening to you internally and how to support yourself through it. The link will be in the description. That is the end of today's episode. Still can't believe we're in season 7. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you found use in today's video. If this resonated, Please subscribe, like, and share with someone. I will see you tomorrow.